Welcome to MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers. Each week, I talk with industry leaders on both marketing and entrepreneurship and business to find out all about their wins and failures in marketing right now. We'll hear all about successes and wins and what's fallen flat so that you can take that knowledge and implement it. Learn from the best, from the folks who've been there and done it all, as well as people just like you. Thanks for joining us. This is MarketPulse Pros and Pioneers.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of MarketPulse podcast. This incidentally is the very last episode that I'll be recording in 2024. Be interested to see what's actually happening when this gets released. Towards the end of April 2025, we're going to be 4 months away from when it actually gets released, probably more like 5. But I'd like to welcome our guest for today's show is Christian Ray Flores. Christian, thank you very much for coming along to the show.
You're very welcome and thank you for inviting me.
Just wish we could get you out sooner. I've decided I'm not doing 2 episodes per week. I think it cheapens the podcast. I want to keep it 1 episode, but I'm desperate to get this episode out already. I know this is going to be a fantastic conversation. So a little bit of background on Christian is an entrepreneur, an international recording artist, philanthropist, and performance coach. That is an eclectic mix of skills, and I can't wait to dive into your story. So sometimes when I have guests on the show, I can hardly believe the biography as I'm reading it out. It's amazing. So after rising to fame as a pop star in Eastern Europe, Christian then co-founded Third Drive Media, where he's raised millions for startups and led award-winning media projects. He's also founded Exponential Life, helping businesses and non-profit leaders excel. He's a fluent speaker of not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 languages. And his journey includes philanthropic work in Mozambique and Ukraine. And he hosts the Headspace by Christian Flores podcast. Wow. How do you have time to sit down and take the world in, Christian? Because it sounds like an incredibly busy life.
And it's easier than you think, actually. I think if you are set up for an eclectic childhood, I think you are much more comfortable with an eclectic professional life. That's probably how it happens, I think.
So with that in mind, tell me about childhood, because you've got a phenomenal, an inspiring story, I think, one that a lot of the listeners will resonate with.
Well, I'm actually not sure if they can relate to it because it's just that insane, right? But they'll hopefully be inspired by it and take something out of it. Yeah, so I'm very eclectic, right? So my mother is Russian, my dad's Chilean, which is an unusual mix. I was born in Moscow, but we moved to Chile when I was 6 months old. That was it. It was supposed to be a normal middle-class professional life for my parents and the homeland of my dad until there was a military coup in 1973, and my dad ended up in a concentration camp, made it out of there. We were in refugees for a while. I was 5 years old when I was a refugee in a refugee facility. And then that basically sent us into the world. We were exiled, like a whole bunch of people got exiled from Chile. And we ended up in Munich, Germany, then in Russia, again, then in Africa, Mozambique. And so I observed a military coup in Chile by age 5. I ended up in Mozambique by age 7. By age 8, there was already a civil war going on there. Those thankfully outside of the capital, not in the capital, but we saw a lot of bombings and things like that. And it was as a backdrop. And then by age 14, after the divorce of my parents, we moved back to Russia. And then Russia, which is at the time, it was like the superpower that would never change, right before our eyes in 91. As I'm graduating from college, the whole thing falls apart. There was an attempted military coup, tanks in the streets of Moscow, that kind of thing. So I was a witness to that as well. And then everything just turned dramatically from all of those hardships and changes into me pursuing music. I became one of the top pop stars in that whole post-Soviet space in about a year and a half. It was very quick. And we went from being nobodies to playing sports arenas in a year or 2, and then campaigning for Boris Yeltsin against the communists in 96. He used my song as the anthem for his campaign. And so that's the backdrop of an eclectic life that I was referring to. You can't be a normal person after that, I don't think.
What's normal anyway, right?
Exactly. It's overrated. It's overrated.
That's amazing. I can't imagine that too much phases you on the back of being through all that.
Yeah, that's one of the superpowers you get. And that's what actually helps you become a good entrepreneur, because you're okay with discomfort, failure, rejection, the normal stuff that comes with starting new things.
So then how do you get from being a pop star to a performance coach? That's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, that's an easy trajectory once I explain it to you. So I'm a high performance guy, right? So I'm at the peak of my career. I speak 4 different languages. I can learn new things fairly quickly because of some of the gifts that come from moving all the time. You have this almost like about culture, about human nature, about languages, what the power of words you are able to create music that moves millions of people. Clearly you have gears, right? I have gears. Guess what? Most gifted high performance people have very flat sides, low performance sides to their lives, right? It just seems to be a rule. You're really good at something and you're terrible at other things. And for me, I realized that I'm literally having number 1 hit and I'm clinically depressed because of romance. And I'm such a completely inadequate person when it comes to family and romance because all of my 3 generations of my family have broken homes. I don't have no intuition in that. I have intuition in how to move a crowd. I don't have intuition how to build a family. And I come across this Canadian missionary in Moscow who is a very special guy, right? And he just has this incredible family. And I said, how do I get what you got? That was like my direct, I quote exactly how I said it. And he says, hey, I'll teach you. And that was my first coach. And it just changed my life. And it woke me up to the reality of every high performer needs a coach because we all have massive flat sides that eventually they catch up with us and prevent us from doing the very high performance that we like doing, right? That's one thing. Second is if you get guidance, you accelerate your growth, but takes you 10 years will take you 1 year, basically, that sort of stuff. And that just woke me up to that reality because it just transformed my life. And it went beyond that. So in romance and family, I literally couldn't hold a relationship. I just sabotaged every single one of them. I was like really terrible. And then after the coaching from this guy, I was able to understand, this is how you choose a mate in the first place so that you don't regret it later. This is how you court somebody. This is how you marry somebody. This is how you stay married. And so I now have been married for 25 years. I have 3 beautiful children. We're a super happy family. So the thing that was literally my weakest part of my life is now my strongest. I've done seminars about marriage and parenting, right? So it's just so extraordinary that you can do that as in the span of just a few years. So I never stopped. That really, really opened my eyes. And I started coaching other people. First, it was just, hey, somebody did this for me. I can do this for you, that kind of thing. And I ended up coaching Olympic athletes and fashion designers and artists and people like that, right? And for a while, it was in Russia. So for a while, I was like, I'm a celebrity here. So that's probably why people come to me. And then moved to the States. Turns out actually in the States, the same thing happens. Eventually, I put 2 and 2 together and I never stopped learning. And I created my own frameworks, my own methodologies and sort of ways to teach and coach somebody. And that's the trajectory for performance coaching.
I think that's a beautiful gift to be able to take a gift like that's being passed on to you and then to have the confidence to then relay that information and tell that to someone else and have that same profound effect on their life. I can imagine that's extremely rewarding for you.
It's extraordinarily rewarding. It really is. Yeah. It took me a while to understand what you said, that it's a gift that should be systematized, implemented. Because at first I was just so grateful. I was just doing it really more organically out of the overflow of my heart. But it took me a while to say, I actually have that. There's a reason why people keep coming to me. So I think I have almost like this. It is a gift. It's not just talent or skill. It's a gift. There's a secret sauce of some sort. And I need to own it. And I need to now steward it to the benefit of others. So that took longer, basically. That confidence in, I think this is a thing.
That's amazing. We touched on, before the show started, before we hit the record button, the value of being able to tell stories. And even just the simple version of the story that you've given us there. And I'm sure there are some individual stories and learnings amongst that would blow people away even more than just the original story. How important is storytelling to you as an individual?
I realized early on, I think, First, through being part of a community of exiles. We had this very strange, okay, you're in Mozambique, and you have a community of 150 families that are Chileans that were exiled. Most of them were imprisoned or tortured. That's why they're exiled. And most of them were brought into this new country that just got its independence from Portugal to help build an economy. So it's a very niche group of people, right? And because it's very niche and it's immigrants, they all band together a lot. We had these sort of every Sunday would meet at the beach with food and music and playing soccer and that kind of thing, right? And they would meet at homes and just hang out, and then they would do parties, and the kids were friends. I think that was honestly the genesis of it, because you almost imagine a biblical narrative of Israel and Babylon, right? Jerusalem is destroyed, they're enslaved, they're in this foreign land. It was that. Like when I read that account, I'm like, I know exactly how it feels, actually, you know? Yeah. And so when you're thrown out of your natural environment, it's almost like you consolidate the exiles together, and all they have is stories. And the stories about their lives, stories about the country of origin, the country they're in, stories about injustice or justice, or stories about tyranny. So these high concepts all of a sudden get concentrated in storytelling in a very tight community. I think that's where it comes from, personally. Then eventually, obviously, I studied storytelling. You study the mythology of different nations. The classic book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, or 100 Faces, I don't remember. But it's basically this idea of the hero's journey, right? Which is now taught in universities. Every film you make, every marketing person knows the hero's journey. What are the main elements of the hero's journey? And the reason for that is because it's a universal language of how we make meaning of the world around us. We don't make meaning in just separate, isolated concepts. We make meaning in storytelling narratives. It sticks that way. So I think it's very primal in us all. And that's why we love films and theater plays and operas and ballets and books, things like that.
And yet it's interesting that so many business owners struggle to come up with a convincing storyline and to be able to tell their own story for their business in order to find the right customers or investments, and that's something that you've played heavily into, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an art. But anybody can learn it. That's the beautiful thing about it. So we've helped a bunch of tech startup founders position their brand, not only for the customer, but also, no less importantly, for the investor. It's just a different story. You have to understand what is the story you're telling to the investor, right? And once you put that hat on of the hero's journey, once you understand sort of these pillar concepts, it becomes incredibly powerful. But if you don't know, all you're doing is throwing facts or stats at the person and things that you think will convince them, and they don't. And a lot of, especially tech founders, they're really not storytellers by neither by talent or by training. They're coders, they're engineers. So they know how to build things, but they don't know how to tell the story of the things they built. So that's one of the things that I do. I have a marketing company that does some of that stuff, and now does it increasingly actually for people who are speakers, writers, influencers, coaches, because they need a personal brand. It's the best time in the history of humanity to develop your personal brand. So helping somebody really tell their story well, and how do you position it, package it, how do you tell it organically and tap into the deepest passions of the person, which makes them much more credible, much more authoritative. It's a beautiful thing as well, right? And it's hard to do it yourself. Like even for me, right? This is what I do for others. It's hard work to do because you are objectively subjective about your thing. So you have to really focus about your own brand. And I do it continuously. Like it does not stop. The rebranding of me never stops because it's a little slower and harder to tell the story objectively, right? From the outside in.
It's an evolving story, right?
It really is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. Literally the last episode that we recorded was a second visit to the show by Adrian Fuller, who started his career in Hollywood, learning from some of the greatest producers the world's ever seen. And he tells that the very first episode he did, he dived into the hero's journey. And it's the first time I'm not marketing classically trained, right? Like I've not been to university and studied marketing or sales.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I wanted to build the podcast in the first place, because I like to absorb from other people and understand things.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked me through the concept of hero's journey. And I just thought, you know what, that none of that's complicated. It's so simple.
Once you get the blueprint, you know what to do. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, I think it's innate. So we're consciously seeking it out. We just don't know that we're doing it. It's, you hear a story, and if you haven't got the bad guy there, the evil in the world, or the injustice that's been done to the hero, you can't say that's why the story isn't resonating, but you just don't feel the highs and the lows that you should do if the story's being told properly. And then I get a group of people who are like, I don't want to tell a story for my business because my business is conversation analytics, or it's AI and it's this, that, and the other. I'm like, yeah, but people don't care about your product, especially investors.
They really
don't care about your product so much. They want to know about you and the journey you've been on and the founding team and how did you get where you are? Why should they believe in what you can do? And I think that's the real power behind a story, is being able to convey your values through your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even a higher level of storytelling when you're marketing a business is you make the client, the customer, your hero. And then through your marketing efforts, you tell their story to them. And that is the higher level of the art form, I think, in marketing and strategy.
Special shout out in today's episode for our charity partners, ADHD Liberty, led by Sarah Templeton, who are part of the fight to prevent the school to prison pipeline for ADHD and neurodiverse individuals. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit them. The show links are in the notes below, and I would encourage you to go along and have a look and educate yourself on their fight. It's an incredibly important cause, and we're super proud to have them as charity partners for the MarketPulse Frozen Pioneers podcast. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your episode. So then you've got a really global perspective on so many things, and I could sit here quite happily and pick your brains for hours on some of the things that you've been through. How do you feel that storytelling changes across the world, or does it? Is a story no matter where you go culturally?
I think a story is a story everywhere you go. And that's the concept of the hero's journey was actually developed by this guy, Joseph Campbell. And he wrote, that's the whole idea, is that he wrote The Hero with 1,000 Faces as basically a treatise on comparative mythology, like all of these global sort of cultures in what they have in common, basically. So there's always a protagonist and an antagonist, and the sort of the journey, the hero needs to change but doesn't want to change. There's an inciting incident. Then there's the messy middle. Then there's sort of an evolution of that person changing, and then he comes back and gifts what he has learned to his community or her community. There's much more complex breakdowns of the hero's journey, but that's basically the gist of it. But if you think about it, everything is story, right? You can actually, I was a guest on an episode yesterday where the gentleman was focused on global affairs. Right? And he said, can you spend a lot of time with Russia? And he's an American guy, a Marine, and he just very curious. And he said, tell me about why is the Cold War, this whole Russia thing, the evolution of Cold War now, why is it happening? And I was telling him, I said, look, it's a story. It's all about the story. The story of the Russian people is different from the story of the liberal democracies, of classic liberalism of the West, period. That is the core of all of it. Everything else is just commentary, nuance, and situational context, right? But really, it's a fun clash of stories. That's what it is.
That's a fascinating way of, and again, as you say, I'm sat here thinking, yeah, I can see that it is. It's not a thing complicated. You just need somebody to point that out to you.
Yeah.
From your perspective then, working with so many startups, what's the biggest game changer for them in terms of getting started telling their story? Where do you take them when you want to take them on that journey where they start to share their journey in a way that makes sense for whichever party?
It's almost like there's a duality to it, which actually you and I touched upon earlier. And that's, I think, a good hint, is that you said, what is your story as the founder, as the business owner? I think that is where you start, right? And basically the idea is, what is that motivates you? What's the why behind it? What is your vision, your mission, and your solution? That's one of the frameworks that I use when I help people. And the idea is if you have a mission, and it takes time to tap into a mission. Most people are afraid to even think that they have a mission, basically, right? I'm like, I'm not special enough to have a mission. Yes, you are. I think you are. And that's sort of part of the coaching work that goes into that, right? That's usually on the performance coaching part, right? It's, who are you? What makes you unique? Everybody's unique. So there's no such thing. And people are afraid to go there because they go, what if I'm not unique? If I'm just middle of the road kind of guy? No, you're not. You're convinced by your society, your parents, your friends, whatever. It was beat out of you. But you are unique. And let's figure that out. So that's the mission piece. And it's also fluid and it changes with time, right? It evolves. It has these curves, and it's a wiggly line, not a straight line. The second is, then once you get a really clear understanding of the mission, that the thing that drives you beyond financial limitations. I don't have staff. I don't have these skills. I don't have marketing budget. I don't have investors. All of the things, all of the illusion of limited resources. And that's the thing that takes you through those things is your mission. You just won't stop until you find the resources, basically. Then you need to develop a vision also. And the vision is, okay, based on the mission, I can imagine myself in a relatively short time, 2 or 3 years, not 10 years, because then you won't follow through and it's too vague, right? But 2, 3 years. Where do you see yourself? What does your ideal day look like, week like, year look like? What is your schedule is? What is your financial situation? So you start developing that vision. And then you can actually come up with something very crisp and super exciting, because now you have a vision. Now you have the next thing you develop is a solution. Okay, how do you get there? What skills do you need to acquire? What partnerships, strategic partnerships, what strategies, what fine-tuning of your marketing do you need? All of those things that seem very mundane and sometimes overwhelming. But if you have a mission, a vision, the solution will come. And so the duality of it is that you do it for yourself, and then you do it for your clients and your customers, right? Then you can think in the same way, in the same structured way, you can say, oh, here's the guy, here's the girl I want to help with this particular product or service. What does she want? And then how can I solve it? And then the solution is, how can I solve it uniquely based on my unique giftedness, my mission, my vision? So that's how you develop an offering that is very specific and therefore irresistible to the right person. So that's a key there. So it's your story, and then it evolves into, I can now imagine, I can embody, I can feel what my client feels. Like literally, I can be in their mind. And once you get to that place of clarity, you're completely unstoppable as a professional.
And yet I still speak to businesses who aren't even clear on who their target persona is, let alone
Precisely.
what's inside their head, because they don't want to do those hard yards. It's hard, right? You make it sound very simple there, but I know that's a lot of digging, a lot of soul searching,
It's very hard, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why you need a mission, because the mission that fire in you will drive you through the hard. Like I still almost weekly have a revelation. What is the pain point of my client, of my ideal client, in more nuance and more context? But I obsess over it because I have a mission. And even my solution evolves because now I have just a teeny, maybe 1% better understanding of the pain points, of the needs of my clients.
I often talk to people about what you should be selling to people, your service, your product, whatever it is. It's less about how you do it. It's more about solving the problems that other person complains to their wife or their husband about over dinner on a night. That's the thing that you really need to help them fix. And to your point, you need to do it in a unique way, because that's where the value really comes from. That's how you can make it yours. I love that way of describing what you've just said. And it resonates a lot with some of the things that I've heard and seen, and especially on the podcast. It's really powerful advice. And I hope that the people at home who's watching or listening along on the show, you take that advice and do something with it. Granted, it's not going to fix your problems tomorrow. It's not going to fix this time next week. But if you start to work on those things and you spend the time and the energy on those instead of the day-to-day things that will solve themselves naturally, then that's how you'll start to be able to live the life you want to live. I think that's the important thing, is you're not just talking about helping people build a business, you're helping them create the life that they want to live themselves, right? Because that's the other side of what you do.
Well, now, if you have a mission and you have a vision and you have a solution that starts working for people, now you're providing them with a vision and mission and solution. Your life becomes such a passionate place, and it's inseparable. Work is inseparable from your personal life anymore. It's integrated. And I think that's what everybody wants in their soul, right? We don't want to just be a cog in a machine somewhere, or especially in somebody else's machine. But I think we settle to be a cog because it offers some security, some predictability, some safety. And it's fine to actually be a cog and then become an artist on the side until the artist on the side can displace the cog part, right? And you can dedicate more time to it.
It resonates because I'll often talk with my wife, and my wife comes from a regular B2C environment. She's a nursery nurse, right? Like by trade. And we talk and she's like, how can you be so confident that you're going to do this thing? Because I believe in it. I know I'll find a way. I have to find a way. There will be a way to do it. I will find a way and I will solve that problem. And she really can't get her head around why I think so differently to her. I can't live like she does either. And we're good together, right? We make a good couple together. But that difference in vision is hard, super hard for some people to get their head around because they've never experienced it. And I resonate completely with what you've said because I know there are things I just can't explain. I just make them happen. I'm not going to say I'm not somebody who's into affirmations or anything like that. I'm not going to say I make things materialize. But because I believe so passionately in what I'm doing, I will find the doors that open to make things work. And I think anybody who's super passionate about what they do will say the same thing, right?
They will. And I think, honestly, I used to think, okay, some people were created that way, like what you're saying. This is how I'm wired. I now believe that everybody's created to be that, and we can rediscover that. So let's say your wife, she's a nurse, and perhaps she does value stability, sort of predictability, routine, and that's not a bad thing. But she can certainly discover a deeper level of mastery, even in the profession, in the vocation that she has, that now makes her extraordinary leader, a thought leader in that field. If that vocation is driven by a deep sense of purpose and passion, you can actually truly develop that into all kinds of things in that exact field. You don't even have to leave your career, basically. I think people, we are trained by all kinds of things, right? Our environment, our society, our family, etc., to be a certain way. But I really think deep down inside, all of us are creators of things. And to the extent that we have the courage to explore it, be coached in it, develop it, nurture it, every single person, I think, can do that.
Amazing words to leave us on. I thank you very much for being the final recording episode of 2024, Christian. If anybody is inspired by the words that you said today, with your story, and they want to reach out and find out a little bit more, what's the best way for people to contact you?
Okay, so if you are inspired to the degree that you just want to hear more from me every once in a while, my newsletter is probably the best thing to subscribe to. It drops every Sunday. You go to christianrayflores.com and you just leave your email address, and that's it. You'll get a lot of goodness every Sunday. You are like sitting there going, oh, this guy just changed my life. I need to be coached by him. You can go to my coaching page, and it's exponential.life. And exponential is spelled without an E, starts with an X, exponential.life. And you can just see the offerings we have, the opportunities we have. There's a great resource there called the Exponential Scorecard that is free. And you can just answer a bunch of questions, and it's a great way to find out where are you now along the most important dimensions of life. So you'll enjoy that if you take that.
I love that. I might just take you up on that myself. Thank you very much, Christian. Have a fantastic holiday. I hope you get to spend some time with your family and get some downtime that's much needed, no doubt. And thank you very much if you're watching along in the show. Thank you very much for subscribing, for following along. And let me know how you found this week's episode. Drop me an email, drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'll always love to hear from the followers of the show. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.